go, man. We're going to do this. So let's get back to this. Creating a sense of urgency. You erase this right here. And I just want to give you guys a perspective. And again, if you have any questions, hit me up with it. How do you create a sense of urgency? One of my favorite phrases, I wish I came up with it, but I didn't, is said, a customer will only make a change when the pain of the same, it's the key part here, when the pain of the same is much greater than the pain of change. Now, let's pause on this one for a second. This is a powerful statement. That it isn't until the pain of the same, of doing nothing, is greater than the pain of change that the customer will change. In other words, if the current situation is bad but not that bad, they'll say, why change? So until the pain of the same, what they're experiencing today, is greater than the perceived pain of the change happens, then they'll change. If you can create that sense of urgency. So this is what creating the sense of urgency is all about. This is where we lose a lot of deals. Because you haven't created enough pain. See, there's a statement that says, people will move two times faster away from pain than they will towards gain. Let me say that again. People will move 2 times faster away from pain than they will towards gain. What does that tell you? Well, let's put this in practical terms. Too often, when we're trying to create a sense of urgency, we present clients with an ROI, return on investment. If you buy this, you'll get this. Future benefits, so forth and so on. ROI is all about being positive. Now, but there's another side to the coin that most people don't talk about, which is the cost of inaction, which is another analysis you can do. What I love about this, it's negative. What did I just say? People will move twice as fast away from pain than they will towards gain. Which means if you're always presenting ROI, that's the gain, that's the benefit, that's great. But this has 2x more power. What is the cost of inaction? What's it costing you, Mr. Client, not to make these changes? I'm not saying you don't use ROI, but this is like a 1-2 punch. This is the return on investment. But here's what's going to happen if you don't do anything. So let's peel that back to really understand what that means, right? So when you're doing a presentation, you get it. Present this, but let's talk about what this means to the customer. Now, let me go ahead. I'm going to erase the whole board on this one. When we're talking about to a client, we have to understand where they're at mentally, right? They're typically in one of 3 states, right? Move this microphone over here. They're usually in one of 3 states. And that is, I'll do it in a ladder form. The first one is, you first have to make them aware that they had a problem. They don't even know. They didn't even know they had a problem. So the first one is to create that awareness. Very basic, not hard to do. But if the client's right here still, that means they haven't even thought about the problem. You just made them aware. Again, this is more education than actually selling. We then have to move them to the next step. So what's the next step? If they're aware, sometimes they know they're aware. I'll say this, they're aware, but they don't care. They don't care. They go, yeah, Victor, I know we need to do that. I know I need that product. I know I should be doing it. I know we need to change those process. I know our SOP is wrong. I know our standard work, SOW, our standard operating work procedure is wrong. I know we have to make changes. We need that in our tech stack. I got it. But, that's kind of what they say really, right? But, in other words, they know, but they don't care. Here they didn't know. Now they know. So if you get them from here, if you can jump up here, now they're here. And it's right here where we need to push them to the next step. And what's the next step? This is pure urgency, which is act now. And too often when we move people from aware to urgency, what we depend on a lot is ROI. And again, nothing wrong with using an ROI analysis, but everybody does it, right? What you need is to also present what is the cost of inaction. The COI. What's the COI, right? So in other words, if I can go from ROI to COI, present the cost of inaction and really document what that means. What does that mean to you, Mr. Customer? Then you're going to have a more powerful presentation, which begs the question, how do you put together a good COI, a COI? I'm glad you're here. Check. So let me walk you through it. Because it's easy to talk about the what, but let me show you the how, right? To me, it has 2 components. Cost of inaction has 2 components, right? And that is, what is the present cost of inaction plus what is the future cost of inaction, right? And these two are usually tied together. And then I would add to this something called the opportunity cost, something most people don't document or think about. Let me give you a physical/tangible example of what I mean. Again, keep in mind, we're talking about change of inaction, cost of inaction. How do we present it in such a way that it has impact? Here's how I do it. When I'm talking to a client, and it's usually about sales training, right? People call me, Victor, we need you to train our team. I give them the price, they go, that's more than I expected to pay. Get that all the time, right? No matter what they tell me, I always know that might be coming my way, but it's never really about the price. And all you have to do is shift their perspective if you know how to insert the cost of inaction. Here's how I do it. I'm going to show you how I do it. When I'm talking to a client, right, and they say, Victor, I get you, but your training's quite expensive for you to come in and do a workshop. To which I'm like, I don't think it's expensive. Can I ask you a question? And as soon as I say, can I ask you a question? What did I just do? Took control of the conversation. And there's certain data points that if I know them, I know I can present the cost of inaction. So for example, one of the questions I always ask is, Mr. Customer, what is your average deal size? Right? If you close a deal, what's the average deal size? Client says, Victor, it's $10,000. Insert your number. It could be 1,000 if it's transactional, 100,000 if it's B2B enterprise, right? But the average deal size, $10,000, right? And then I ask, what is your conversion rate, right? And they'll say something like, it's 30%, right? 30%. Translation 30%. For every 10 deals, they're closing only 3, right? For every 10 deals, they're closing only 3. That's it. Now, we can do simple mathematics here, but here's the third question I ask. Well, let me show you this part first, then I'll give you the third question. That means they're leaving 7 deals on the table, which means 7 times that, and let's say this is per month, they're leaving $70,000 on the table. 7 deals that they didn't get times the 10,000. Now, in my head, I try to use a very simple approach. Mr. Customer, if we can get you from 30 to, let's say, 4 deals, would that impact your business? Well, that's 1 extra deal a month. That's 10,000, which is 1 extra deal a month, right? If they can just increase from 30 to 40, right? Just 1 deal a month. But then I ask the third question, which is, how many salespeople do you have? Let's say they have 20 salespeople. Well, if everybody moves up their close rate by 10%, in other words, 1 extra deal out of 10, I would take that number, multiply it by 20, and now we're at $200,000 a month potential that they can actually grab in terms of business if they let me train their salespeople, right? So now I am saying to them, that means every month that you don't hire me or somebody like me, you're potentially losing out $200,000 a month. At the end of the year, multiply that by 12, that's 2.4, whatever it may be. You get the idea, it's a lot of money. So in other words, now I don't become that expensive. When they start looking at present and the future over the next 12 months, that's a big number. But wait, don't stop there. So now we've created some urgency, right? So this is like the cost of inaction. But we got to kind of like, I'll just say, stick the knife in. Now we got to twist it a little bit so I can feel the pain of not, I know it's a brutal example, right? Brutal visual. But now you want to just a little more, right? And then this is phase 1. So in other words, this is 2 phases so far. First one is I get the data and I calculate it for 1 salesperson. Step number 1. Step number 2, I ask them how many salespeople and then calculate the full amount. That's step number 2. Step number 3, so I've done present, future over the next 12 months. Now I go for the third component of the cost of inaction, which is opportunity cost. Think about this. If you don't sell somebody, how should I approach this one? If I sold a person and they gave me a referral, that's a potential deal I can probably get. So in other words, every time I close a deal, 1, there's a referral element, right? Every time I close a deal, there's a referral element. In other words, another client, potential client that would buy something for $10,000. So that in itself has a dollar amount. You can figure that out. You can insert whatever number you think is appropriate. But I'll say, Mr. Customer, because you're not closing 1 deal per salesperson every month, you got 20. That's 20 deals we've left on the table, potentially. Maybe out of those 20 deals, we could have gotten 1 or 2 referrals. We're missing out on that. Mr. Customer, what number would you put in there? I like to let them insert the number because I want them to take ownership for the number. Now, I then ask the second part of the opportunity cost, which is the upsell. In other words, what is, the customer lifetime value? Nobody ever thinks about this. Let me slow down. If I close a deal, I sell them at $10,000. On average, over the next 2-3 years, you'll probably sell them 30% of the actual original price. In other words, if I sold you something for $10,000, maybe over the next 2-3 years, let's say 3 years, I'll sell you additional 30%, which is another $3,000, right? So that's $3,000 in upsell opportunity I don't have because I didn't close a deal. So not only does not losing a deal hurt me because I don't get referrals, I also don't get the upsell, which then lowers my customer lifetime value. And again, I usually ask the customer, Mr. Customer, what's your customer lifetime value? Believe it or not, too many people go, I have no idea, Victor, never really calculated it, which is a shame. So what I typically do is say, look, if a customer bought today, and I usually 3 years as a window, over the next 3 years, how much more will they typically buy if it's a good customer? Then they give me a number, and then I can arrive at a customer lifetime value. But notice what I'm doing. I'm stacking pain. Yeah, stacking pain is what I said. I'm letting them know that they're losing deals, right? The 30 to 40%, right? Per salesperson. Multiply that by 20 salespeople over a year. That's a lot of money lost. On top of that, I'm losing the revenue opportunities. Ooh, that hurts, right? Last but not least, all the upsell and cross-sell opportunities are also going to be gone. Mr. Customer, when you add all this up, how can you possibly say I'm too expensive? What's too expensive is not doing anything. It is the cost of inaction. Based on what I've just shown you, when should we get started? Or something like that, right? To close the deal. You get the idea. So again, ROI is great. That's positive. Here's what you're going to get, and here's how fast you're going to get your money back, right? But cost of inaction has more of a punch. If you can document, make it tangible, make it concrete, you can make those numbers real to them. And one of the tips I learned early on in my sales career, especially when you get to this part, is let them give you numbers. Don't insert numbers for them. Let them give you the close rate, for example. Let them give you the average deal size, which they will. But when you get to this part right here, let them give you, on average, how many referrals does each salesperson bring in? On average, after a deal is closed, what's your customer lifetime value? And you plug those numbers in. And if you have this as part of your presentation, again, you do discovery, you get into the education, the demo, and as you're moving towards the close, you're blocking the objection by saying, look, here's how much money you're losing by not having our product or service. And if you can weave this throughout a presentation, you'll feel it towards the end. You're not going to get big price resistance. But again, if you just focus on ROI, you're just looking at one side of the coin. The COI, the cost of inaction of not doing something. This is what it's costing you. And that's the pain that you got to deliver, because pain always trumps gain when it comes to selling. Now, on that note,